Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming to my seminar. We're just things that I get with dog training is, I love my dog. They're a very well-behaved dog, but when I get home from work, they're so excited. They just jump all over me, and I'm excited to see them too, but I've been at work all day long, and I don't necessarily want them jumping on me. Don't mind it on the weekends, but, during the week, man, it's kind of hard to get in the door, and I'm tired, and I don't want them jumping. It's a big thing. We can work with that with dog training by learning communication, dog communication. So the first thing that I would break down is, why does your dog jump in the first place when they see you? What is it that makes dogs jump? Think back on any kind of video you've seen or any kind of animal interaction with two dogs when they first greet each other, especially dogs that are already familiar with each other. What do? They kind of do this jump around and circle thing. What are they doing? They're greeting each other. They're overjoyed with excitement. They're greeting each other, and dogs greet each other by two ways. By sniffing each other's butts. That's like a handshake for dogs, sniffing butts. It's a dog. And rubbing each other's noses. If they're comfortable with the other pet, they will rub noses. And that's what they're doing when they're jumping around and going in circles, is they're rubbing noses with each other. And that's their way of giving a hug. So with jumping, they're greeting each other. They're trying to say hello. So what can we learn from that? What helps us with that? By knowing that you can stop that behavior, and it's not necessarily a negative behavior from their standpoint. So we can take that and we can incorporate it with our dog training. So we can do that by asking them to do an approved behavior. So the biggest thing, and especially like with jumping, is the first behavior I would introduce with is sit. It is very easy to go from I'm going to jump, where we're kind of in a crouching position, getting ready to jump up, to then just going down to the rump and sitting. So I would really work on sitting and getting that reinforced. Once that's reinforced and they've learned it and they're confident with it, then when we see them start to crunch down to jump up, the moment we see their knees kind of slightly bend, we're going to ask for a sit. The moment their butt hits the floor, we're going to mark that with the marker word. It's going to be a yes or the clicker if you have that handy. And then when they're sitting with their butt on the floor, that's when we would give them attention. Now, if they get excited and they start jumping again, then we're going to ask for that sit again. And the signal for sit, let's see if I can get enough in the angle here, is you're going to start with your hand down and you're just going to bring it up. And the reason for it is this here, if you envision that this part is their back, so their back is flat and parallel to the floor, and then you raise it up towards you. Now their back is in that sitting position. And that's how they understand that signal is, oh, this is what you want me to do. You want me to sit. Okay, so it's just an out and then up. And that's your cue for sit. So with the cues, and there's two different types of cues. There's a verbal cue, and then there is your visual cue. Dogs communicate mostly visually, right? Because there is no form of verbal communication with them. I mean, they whine, they bark, they yip, they growl. But they don't really, those are more, they're not their main language. Their main language is visual, right? So kind of think of it as like your main language might be English, but you might have a second language that you kind of know is Spanish, and maybe you're not as frequent or understand it as well. And it's the same kind of thing with dogs. Probably more so different, like from like English to, let's say, Vietnamese maybe. Maybe you know a word or two, but that's about it. And that's kind of where it is with dogs. So that's where that visual really helps them. I always say when you're teaching a new behavior, don't repeat the word over and over. So let's say we're teaching a dog sit. You don't want to be like sit, 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 sit. And there's a reason for that, because if you continue to do that, you're going to have to say sit, 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 sit every time you want your dog to sit, because they don't realize that it's a different word or the same word over and over and over. They think of it as one big word. This is the cue for sit, 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 sit. So what I recommend doing when starting a new behavior is you say the command word once, sit, and then you can repeat your cue multiple times. So I say you can do your visual cue 3 times before repeating your verbal cue. So it would be sit, sit. That way they're linking the two as this is the command you want, instead of I have to say sit, 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 sit. Okay. Dogs with communication, and so I said they do things with body language. So how can we take that into consideration? We can see cues. So for instance, when we're teaching stay is a hard one to teach for dogs, because that fights their natural instinct. Their natural instinct is, I want to go, I want to move, I want to discover this, I want to do that. So watching their body language, you can see their muscles just slightly flex. And the moment you kind of see that flex, you remind them to stay. Learning, seeing, being observant. What are they looking at? If we have a dog, let's say, that is animal aggressive, and we're taking our dog for a walk, we as the owner should be responsible not only to the other animals, passerbys, and not only but for our dog. Every experience should be a positive experience. It takes one negative experience to cause aggression, fear, anxiety, and it takes some time to overcome that, depending on how many negative experiences can then correlate to how long it would take to correct that. So if we have an animal aggressive dog and you're out for a walk, be mindful. If you see a squirrel down the road, be mindful where that squirrel is and where your dog's attention is. If your dog hasn't spied the squirrel yet, then everything's fine. Keep walking. The moment you're like, oh, there's a squirrel, now you're tense, your anxiety, and your dog may not even see the squirrel. He just now senses that you're anxious. And then he's just like looking around like, what's making her anxious? What's making her anxious? And then he sees the squirrel and he's like, oh, it's that squirrel. It's the squirrel that's making my mom mad. And that is inadvertently reinforcing that aggression toward the squirrel. So keep a mind on where their attention is, what they're doing. So with that, now we're walking along, you're keeping an eye on that squirrel, you're keeping an eye on your dog and seeing where he's looking. And the moment you see his connection with that squirrel, the moment he's like, squirrel, you're like, this way, keep coming. And you're just gonna happy voice and keep going. There's nothing to be concerned about. Everything's fine. It's just a squirrel. And eventually he'll be like walking along, he'll see the squirrel and he'll be like, it's a squirrel. Mom says this is okay. I'm gonna keep going. And that's how we can kind of desensitize them into not having that aggression. So being able to read that body language, being able to be observant of your surroundings, of what's going on, what your pet is doing, getting involved with, kind of helps. And that's where dog training will really teach you how to see those nuances, what to do in certain situations, that kind of thing. A demonstration that I really like to do to kind of help understand your dog's perspective of dog training. And I try to do this as much as I can with my dog training classes, is if you don't speak a language that somebody else is speaking to you, how do you communicate that? Especially coming from we're verbal people. We are very much verbal animals. And our dogs are very much visual animals. So how can we communicate? You're teaching your dog sit. So you tell your dog sit. How does he understand what you're asking? So, for instance, if I were to walk around and I were to start saying, watermelon, pineapple, apples, watermelon, cherries, grapes, watermelon. Can you tell me out of those things which one was my cue word? Which one was the behavior that I was asking? Was it grapes, apples, pineapples, watermelon? Any guesses? Watermelon. That's confusing, right? It's very confusing and it can be frustrating. That's what your dog's going through. What is she doing? What is this crazy lady doing? She's just calling out fruit. What's this crazy lady doing? She just keeps saying this word sit, throwing her arm up. So it's a guessing game. Dog training is very much a guessing game for dogs. And you'll see it if you look around, if you go to a dog park and you see, people working with their dogs and behaviors and stuff. Or you might even see it with your own pet. You're asking him to sit. He sits, he lays down, he rolls over. Why do you think he's doing that? He's guessing. He's like, oh, she's been saying this word. I caught on that maybe this word she says sometimes she wants me to do something. I know she wants me to do something. I'm going to sit. Oh, maybe that's not it. Maybe I should lay down. So it's frustrating. And it can be just as frustrating for the owner that's working with the pet because they don't understand. Well, I've asked him to sit. I know he knows sit because, 75% of the time he sits. Is he just guessing? He's just guessing, and he just happens to 80% of the time be right. Pretty good at guessing. That doesn't necessarily know that he means that he knows the behavior. If he can do the behavior 98% of the time with the cue word or with the signal, visual signal, and the cue word, that's when he's learned the behavior. So by understanding that, you can kind of start to relate to what your dog is going through. And this is where the mental stimulation comes in. Because, yeah, it's like doing a puzzle yourself. Not exactly sure where this piece goes, not exactly sure what this particular phrase means. We've all played those games, those, quizzing games where figure out this puzzle. What is this person asking of you? It's the same thing for your dog. And having that basic understanding of dog behavior can help you communicate and help you understand, maybe we're just not getting it. The moment you see that your pet is getting frustrated by something, go back to something they know. Maybe it's as simple as just going back to the name game, calling their name and giving them reward. And I use that a lot, and I'll say it in my dog training a lot of the times, reset them, because they get so frustrated. Have you ever tried to work at a puzzle? I've been playing Bejeweled a lot lately, and there's some times where it's just like there's no more moves. Where's the move? And I get really frustrated, and I'm like, they're in the same kind of frame of mind when you're trying to teach them a behavior and you're asking them to do something. They can tell you're getting frustrated, they're getting frustrated. I have no idea what this person is asking me. I don't know why we're here. I know they have treats. Don't understand why they're not giving me the treats. I just don't know. Reset. Give the treat. Call the name. And then like, I'm getting treats. I'm getting treats. I'm doing what she's asking. I'm all happy. And then let's do again. Let's go to sit. Oh, she's asking me that again. Okay, what does that mean? Now I'm more focused. Now I'm all like, okay, here we go. Let's try it again. It's just taking that little bit of a breather to get them focused again. And understanding their perspective of dog training can really help it go a long way. Really, with dog training, we want to build their confidence in their behavior skills, build that connection between the owner and the dog. And when these all come together, it is amazing. It is an amazing thing. For an example, I had one of my clients in particular that comes out to mind when I talk about this is I was training a bigger dog, an Irish Wolfhound, and he did not really like loose leash walking or heel. And he was a very strong dog, and mom had a really hard time controlling him on walks. And she was just totally frustrated. You could tell the Irish Wolfhound was very frustrated. And she was ready to kind of throw in the towel. She's like, I can't control this dog. I can't even take him on a walk. I don't know what to do. I love him, but this might be too much for me. And I'll never forget the moment where they had that click. And it took time. It took time, and it took dedication on her end and on the Irish Wolfhound. And that moment, and I had them do heel down the hallway, turn around, and come back. And it was that moment where they just kind of clicked. It just kind of came in. And I'll never forget the look on her face when they turned around at the end of that hallway. Her face was just lit up. She had the hugest smile. He kind of had like a prance to him, like, yeah, we got this. And it was just, that's it. That's why I love dog training. That's the moment right there where everything just comes together. And that is fulfilling. That is fulfilling for the dog. It is fulfilling for you as the owner. And it really can overall just make a fulfilling life for the both of you. And it can help tremendously with even health-wise, because if you're more mentally stimulated and more sharp, you're healthier. And so that's where my vet tech stuff kind of comes in. You use different signals for sit. Or should I change it to do what you use? Again, this kind of goes back to there's no cookie cutter way for dog training. So I generally teach the universal cues, which is what I use with that. That doesn't mean that you have to do that. I think I've had some people that use this for sit, some people that kind of do this for sit. There's so many different ways. As long as you're consistent, that's the key. And that's the key for most behaviors with dog training is being consistent. So, for example, one of the people I work with a lot, and I kind of work long distance with her because my sister just adopted it. I shouldn't say just. It's probably had him about a year now, almost a year. A 10-year-old German Shepherd Butch. She's had a little bit of issues with Butch, but he's come a long way. He's actually on my page. He's the German Shepherd that you see on my page. But with him, she was teaching him shake, which I'm not a real fan of, by the way. She was teaching Butch how to shake, and he would shake perfectly for her. But then her boyfriend would come in, and he'd be like, shake him. Shake him. And he's like, he won't shake for me. He won't shake for me. And she's like, well, that's because you're saying shake him. She's like, I don't say that. I say shake. You know, And that's because it wasn't consistent. And the moment that he started saying shake, Butch would shake. It's what works best for you as long as you're consistent, long story short. So if you decide to use a different hand signal for sit, some people will snap their fingers and point down. Whatever you use, it's fine, as long as whatever you used to begin with. Sometimes we can change it if we're just starting to continue their education and working with dog training. Sometimes we can kind of train them. But if you're just working with training him at home by yourself, yeah, whatever you started doing in the beginning, that's fine. Just be consistent. Make sure everybody in the household uses it. If you have guests come over and you want to tell them to have the pet sit, when they come into the house and their dog's jumping, just teach them this is the signal we use for sit. And then that way it's universal. As long as you're consistent, you can use whatever visual cue or verbal cue you want to use. For instance, universally, when we ask a dog to go into the laying position, we say down. And I've very quickly learned with my own pet that I really shouldn't use down to signal going to a lay position, because when my pet jumps up on something, that's what I say. I say down. Well, I'm not asking her to go into a laying position. I'm asking her to get off whatever she's on. So either I need to change my wording and start using off and work with her and teach her what this new word is, which is doable, a lot more work, or I can change my command word for going into a laying down position. So I would probably say lay. Another thing I will bring up, since we're kind of talking about this, is think about what you're using for your commands, and more importantly, what you use for your release command. So if we're teaching stay, for instance, you put them in a behavior of stay. So they're to stay in that position until you release them, until you say the release word. And generally speaking, and I've just kind of learned about this, so I'm trying to reincorporate some of my methods, is I normally would say, okay, or let's go, or something along those lines. But okay is the one that I really want to focus on. How often do you say the word okay in a casual conversation? A lot. So if you have your dog in a stay position at your side and you're carrying on a conversation with your friend and you say, okay, yeah, I'll see you tomorrow, and your dog gets up and starts walking off, you're like, I didn't release you. Well, you said okay, so you did. So think about that. When you're coming up with your release word, think about, okay, how often am I saying this word? Is this a good release word? Should I say release instead of okay? You know, is it okay for me to say let's go? Well, how often in a day do you say let's go? Maybe you don't say it much at all. I don't say it much at all. So maybe that would be okay. But, you know, as I say that, whenever I'm getting ready to go out with my family, there's always somebody that kind of like is off doing something, and I'll say, okay, come on, let's go. So maybe that isn't a good one. So really take some time, think about what kind of things do you do? Where can you incorporate dog training? What is a good release word? And these things are very beneficial when doing dog training. Kind of getting close to the hour mark here. But if any further questions, feel free to message me. You can post it on my site. You can contact me personally. If you like these training videos, if you want to see more Facebook Live, please let me know. I'm willing to do this once a month and keep it going. if that's something that you think would be beneficial, and we can go into more of the training. What are the cues? How can we do this? Yeah, just let me know. Be in communication with me. I'm really all about communicating with you guys and helping as many pet owners as I can. A well-behaved pet is a pet that stays in the home. I said I work as a vet tech. So I see a lot of those sad cases where the owner is distraught. They've tried everything they know, and they have to let go of their pet, whether it be to a shelter or euthanization. Maybe the dog just got so aggressive that now the city is requiring the euthanization, which it just gets me choked up even thinking about it. And that happens, and that's what I'm here for. Is I want to prevent that. And the sooner you get started with dog training, the sooner we can prevent that. So that's my purpose. So I'm here for you guys, more than I am for myself, quite honestly. I'm very passionate about what I do. So I'll wrap it up. I can probably talk about that forever. Thank you all for joining me. Great questions. And it looks like I'll probably keep doing this, but let me know, give me feedback. I'm sure there's people that are going to watch this after I repost it. So I want their input as well. So I will say goodbye from Barker Canine Academy. Thanks for joining me.